Hello, and welcome back to Global Gaming Women's Fair Game Podcast. I'm your host, Anika Howard. The Fair Game Podcast is proudly produced and edited at the Light and Wonder Studios here in Las Vegas. And we really appreciate their in-kind support in helping us bring these conversations to our community. This episode also spotlights support from Wonder Nation, the company that I lead. So I'm very happy to be part of being kind of a community of the valued partners that Global Gaming Women has, supporting them to bring their mission to empower women to life. Today, I'm really excited because we have a 2-for-1. It's part of our Casino 101 series, but also part of our empowerment series. And so just to remind our guests and listeners, the Casino 101 series is where we demystify the business of gaming. And for empowerment, we really try to find opportunities to celebrate women who are a force of nature in this industry. And our guest today fits both. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Desiree Dickerson. She's the CEO and co-founder of Thunder. And Thunder is building the world's first PvP, lot to say, player versus player, skill-based gaming platform with player liquidity and instant wager settlement, powering everything from sports books to virtual casinos. And so we're going to take some time to meet Desiree and learn about her journey and the experiences that she had. And so more so than me sharing and telling you about her, I want to bring her in and so she can talk about her journey in her own words. Welcome to the Global Gaming Woman Fair Game Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, Anika.
No, and so I always like to say that in many cases, people see your glory, but they don't necessarily know your story. And so I love starting with origin stories. And so for yours, it's been very interesting learning a little bit more about you because you have a very non-linear path to get to gaming. So what I understand, you started at University of Chicago as a biology major. So can you take us back to that part of your story and give us a little bit of kind of what you were thinking and kind of how some of those things early kind of years have shaped kind of the passion that you have today?
Yeah, I can get into that. It has been a wild journey, but I really just like kind of exploring things that interest me and kind of opening up doors that seem like good opportunities. And I think that's kind of the gist of my career. But yeah, I started out at the University of Chicago studying biology, and then did my master's degree in biophysics and physiology at Georgetown. And I have always, I love science. I love research. I've done a lot of research. I just really love like looking into and exploring problems, and I think that's probably the greater thread that is, kind of weaves throughout my career. So after that, I had a decent amount of student loans. So I decided to go into management consulting as one does. And I worked at Booz Allen for some time, also a boutique consulting firm here in DC as well. And, I've always been interested in tech and gaming and, it was things that I was just always exploring on the side. So one of the other things that was always had interested me since grad school was Bitcoin. So that was something that I was really passionate about in my personal life. And I ended up leaving my consulting firm for a startup in the Bitcoin space. And I worked there for, a little over 3 years. And then during the pandemic, I actually was in VR. I love VR. And I met my co-founder, Jack, in VR during the pandemic. And we became really good friends. And we kind of like worked on some community Bitcoin projects together. And then in late 2021, we actually ended up being like, okay, cool, let's start this company. Jack was an incredible mobile games developer. He's had numerous number one hits in the App Store and Google Play. So we really started out focusing on free to play mobile games. But about 2 years into kind of our startup journey, we ended up surveying our users, and all of them wanted to bet on the games, which again, these were all free to play, single player type of games. So we ended up transitioning to build player versus player skill games that allowed our users to wager real money. And we had been at an accelerator and been doing a ton of market research, I think we did over 50 hours of customer discovery calls. And it ended up, we decided to transition to B2B. So instead of us just taking these skill games to market as a B2C app, we decided to sell the games as a re-engagement, retention, and monetization tool to specifically the iGaming space. But a little bit out of that too, we work with a lot of sports books, DFS, lottery, iCasino sweeps. We work with rewards companies, crypto wallets, really anyone who's looking to, bring users back after they close the app, or in between bets, in between seasons. Our app is a really great way to do that. So we've been in the iGaming specific space for 2 years, and it's been absolutely incredible. And yeah, I think, for me, it's always been about solving problems. Like, our games were performing well before as free to play, but it was like, what can we do better?
Yeah.
And it just took a little bit of like asking and problem solving, and then that's how we've gotten where we are now.
No, I mean, it sounds like a lot of kind of that core rigor around doing research and really kind of having a hypothesis and then kind of going through and continuing to refine it based on what the need is. Kind of, it's almost like it feels like that same methodology you've been applying to the business, kind of taking it, learning, kind of refining it, and kind of going from there. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely apply the scientific method to pretty much everything that I do in my professional life and also my personal life. So yeah, that's just been a string of how I operate. And I think we've built Thunder with a bunch of people who think incredibly similar. We're always questioning our assumptions. We're always testing everything. We never fall in love with any of our ideas. And I think that's what's made us, and knock on wood, successful. But, people like what we're building. And I think that is kind of the cornerstone of who we are as a team as well.
No, I think especially around being innovative, really kind of not falling in love with the ideas and being able to stress test it is really important. And that's kind of, definitely as we're talking about Al Casino 101 part of it, but really I want to lean into the empowerment because I think some of the things that you've been talking about, you make it sound so easy, but you're a woman CEO in gaming, which is hard enough. And then you're also a CEO in Bitcoin, which has its own level of hard. And so, what does it feel like walking into some of those rooms, and how has that shifted over the past 5 years? So it sounds like you're consistently evolving, and so you're, I'm assuming, kind of always pitching, always evolving, always putting some of those things. And so, when you enter in those rooms and have those conversations, can you talk to the team about like how do you approach, and what are the things that advice that you could give others that are trying to go down a similar journey?
And I think for me, it's a couple of things. One is, there are just like realities that are really unfortunate, being a female CEO, or just being a female in a lot of situations. But it's something that, obviously we're all working to change, but there are just harsh realities. I think someone sent me a research paper that I believe was done at Harvard that had said, basically it was like, if you're a female CEO pitching to investors, here are the things that, you should do. And they had, one of the ones that really, one was about like wearing red lipstick. And I was like, I'm not wearing red lipstick. Not happening. But one was like, oh, just having a male counterpart on the call with you makes the investors believe what you're saying more. And it was like by like 30% more or something. It was wild. It was a really unfortunate, really, really sad statistic. But, rather than, kind of groveling in like that disappointment, I've just made a point where it's like, okay, my co-founder Jack, you have to join the calls. You don't have to say anything. You can sit there and code. But you just being here might increase our chances by 30%. And again, don't quote me on the exact percentage. I think it's like it's not a perfect world yet. But figuring out like what the reality is that you live in and operate that to the best of your ability. But then when given chances like this, or, talking to other female founders, talking about that this is an actual reality we need to change, and talking to men as well, where it's like, this is literally a study from Harvard. How can we change that? But in the meantime, I have to operate. I have, shareholders and, investors and people that, we have fiduciary duties to. So I think it's like a balancing act, because so much of me wants to like stand on my high horse and like make a point and change things fast. But I think by navigating, the status quo, unfortunately, is sometimes the best way to change things long term.
No, I mean, I could have experienced similar, and I know some of the conversations I've had are around like, how do you get more female investors? How do you, what are some of the things that you can do to kind of get more, female at the tables for these private equity companies? Like, what are the things that you can do so that there are more representation on all sides of the table, right? But I agree. Because I think also I read a study that, just in general and relative to male founders, like women CEO founders are kind of much less funded in terms of some of those opportunities. And I've had lots of stories. I remember going to South by Southwest and listening to a panel and was just saying how, of female founders kind of in similar situations, and talking about the different things and experiences that they've had in terms of getting funding for some of those things. So I agree, baby steps, but kind of congratulations to the work that you've been able to do to overcome those.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so I'm going to also just kind of stay on this kind of issue, because I feel like for our kind of podcast, we don't often have female founders, especially in kind of this specific space. And so kind of co-founding a company is one of the most personal things that you can do as a leader. What kind of co-founder kind of would you describe yourself as? And then, what kind of CEO have you grown into over the past 4 years as your company has evolved?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, I'm interested to see what my co-founders think. We have 4 co-founders. But yeah, I would be interested to see how they view me as a co-founder. I think Jack Everett, who I work the most closely with, he does a lot of product, and he helps with some of the founder-led sales. We work really well together because we're complete opposites. I'm very passionate. I take things incredibly personally, and he is the complete opposite. He's British, super even keeled, the worst, like the world could be falling apart and he would like find some silver lining and like get through. So like I 100% could not do it without him.
Yeah.
I'm the more emotional, but like for me, I can be incredibly compassionate with our partners and like understand what they're going through and can respond to things a lot better. So I think in that way, I am definitely way more all over the place. And but the one thing we both are kind of are similar on is just like the big idea thing, which is like throwing around crazy ideas. 3 years ago, if you would have asked me if we were in the iGaming space. If, we were building skill games, I would have never believed you. But it was an idea that I had because, well, everybody had ideas around this, but my family's really passionate about sports betting. And I was like, is there something there? And then we started digging at that. But and then in terms of, growing as a leader, it's been really interesting. We raised money, around in the funding bubble, I would say late 2021, from amazing investors, Initial Capital, Craft Ventures. We're very, very fortunate. But it's been a wild ride, through the war in Ukraine. We have half of our team is in Poland, so they were housing people. We're doing a lot of volunteer work. Everybody's struggled with so much. So much has happened in the past 4 years. So, the thing I think that how I've grown as a leader is just like more listening. Now I just listen to how everybody feels and what they're passionate about, and I let my inputs lead more than I lead, which I think is right. We still have our free to play games portfolio, and it's great. It's operating. It makes money, but it takes a lot of attention from the team in terms of they're not working on the core product. And so for me, it's like a very easy business decision. I'm like, shut them down. I don't care about them. I hate them. Get rid of them, because I want to focus on our B2B product because it's doing so well. But, instead of saying that, I started listening, and, the developers who worked on it, who built all of these games, like spent weekends on it, went through these crazy all night launches of these games. And I'm glad I didn't lead with my initial thoughts and like how I was feeling, because like they were feeling like really emotional about it because it's like it was their babies and they're essentially getting rid of them. So that's one thing I've learned, and I think probably the hard way is because I have a very strong personality, and can kind of lead with that. And so that's a huge thing I've had to learn is like listen before you speak, which is an easy lesson, but it's taken me a while.
Yep, and I think also it's listening that, and then kind of listening to the players too. So kind of understanding what the needs are of your team and kind of how to kind of build that, but kind of making sure that it's always tied back to what the market wants, which it seems that that's how your company has been able to evolve so rapidly as the needs of the industry change, because you're in such a dynamic field. And so as we're kind of leaning into that, what is something in the industry that you feel like women need to hear more often than not, but they're not hearing enough of, especially kind of in this kind of process? I don't know kind of how many women you have on your team or how many women kind of developers but like I can imagine this can be a like you said, a very kind of dynamic, and you have to make quick decisions. And so what are some of the things that you would give to advice for women that are, or even just anyone that kind of is a listener that wants to get into um, this field?
I mean, one, people in this space are just so welcoming and just incredible. I think was SBC in New York, like the first conference that I went to. And I actually met Sue Schneider, and she just like took me under her arm and introduced me to everyone. We work with her and Defy the Odds very closely now. Same with like Paris Smith. When I lost my pitch competition there, she had written me on LinkedIn and was like, I really, enjoyed what you're building and like the pitch. And so I find this industry to be very welcoming. Like I can find it to be really intimidating. Before getting into the space, I'm not a huge gambler. I only bet on NASCAR with my dad, but I'm not like prolific sports bettor like the rest of my family. So it can be a bit intimidating with so many men who are running the companies that we need to sell to. But so I would say, the thing that I took way too long to learn as well is like, don't second guess yourself. Sometimes I'll be like scrolling through conference attendees and be like, oh, I'm not, I'm afraid to message this person because it's like a tier one operator. And I'm like, they're never going to care. They're never going to respond. And I always just do it so quick that I can't think about it, because more often than not, people respond. And if they don't, like, they're just like, they're not judging you.
Yeah.
And so that's been my biggest lesson learned is like, people aren't thinking about you, like, and they're not judging you. And so if you can get in front of them, just take the leap. It's never second guess yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talk about this a lot too, just getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think a lot of times it's the negative self-talk and continually kind of talking yourself out of an opportunity, but just kind of being brave and leaning into it is important. And you also mentioned Sue Sider. Sue has been very instrumental in my life, and I can't imagine how many other women. She's just kind of one of those women that just really, really leans in, and she will kind of reach out and kind of connect you and do all those types of things too. And I really think that's one of the power of even kind of beyond Sue when you're kind of looking at what we're doing here at Global Gaming Women and giving women a platform and really giving an opportunity to really connect and empower. So I do feel like that. Thank you for kind of calling her out, and Paris as well, and the work that they're doing there, because it is important, and that does help kind of guide, kind of, especially as you're starting out in the industry, to have those kind of people that will always be your North Star. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just like lip service in this
Yeah.
industry either. When we were more in the mobile gaming space, they had all these women's groups and things that like every had the best intentions in mind, but there was never like any real actionable like follow up. But in this space, it's like if someone's like, "Oh, cool, I can intro you to this person,"
Yeah.
they make the intro, and people are just like very invested in seeing others' success. So it's like it's really really awesome, especially in the women's community. It's a rising tide lifts all ships. I can just really feel it. I mean, 2.5 years ago, I was like scared to even send a LinkedIn message or attend my first conference, and I've just been shocked. It's just such a great space. Like mentorship is so highly valued too.
Yeah. So now I'm going to ask you to pay it forward. So, for kind of a listener kind of sitting out that kind of wants to be where you are and kind of are looking and curious about crypto or are kind of iGaming or both, what are some of the things that you would tell her, and that she needs to know and needs to do to break into the space?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I'm always happy to talk to people who are building startups because I feel like I've learned so many things the hard way. I'm also an older sister, so I feel like I've learned
Yeah.
everything the hard way in life. And
Same.
people, yeah, like people like yourself and Megan and Sue and Paris and Kelly, like everybody's kind of almost been like my older sisters or cousins to like kind of help me learn. So I'm always happy to do that. But I think the one thing if you're building a startup is like sell something fake first. Sell something completely that is not built. The idea is, but make sure it's something you can build and will build
Yeah.
if there's demand. And that was the biggest mistake I think we made at Thunder in the beginning, was bringing a product to market that we wanted, and it was a very cool product, but it was never going to be hockey stick growth. But with what we've built now, we pulled together 3 or 4 slides of this product that we have now, but it was not built at the time. I tried to sell it to our first customer, Gino Donati from Bet Openly, and he was like, "Sure, yeah, I love this. Let's go." And we built it. I was like, it's not totally built yet, but he was our first customer we launched. We've done really great volume with them. He's now like a very close personal friend, pretty much my older brother that I never asked for. And it's just like, I think that's the biggest thing, is like putting something into market that you like is always going to be wrong. And we did that for 2 years. I mean, even like design decisions were things that I liked or thought looked good, which was all wrong, totally wrong. And now everything is totally driven by direct feedback from customers, or we found it in the data. And I think that's the biggest lesson learned, is just to sell, 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 and then build.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important piece of it. I think you made a point that was very um, interesting in that, a lot of times we get enamored with something that we like, but I always tell my team that I'm not the customer, you're not the customer. Kind of really, you need to build something that people are need and want, and not something that we like. And I think it's a discipline to get out of the habit of just kind of looking at something and kind of get into this group think idea of building something that everybody internally is excited about, but no one is going to buy because it's not the right thing. And so I like the idea of selling the idea and selling the concept and stress testing that, and then kind of bringing that to market when you find that that's the thing that that the audience wants. So
100%.
good. And so, kind of almost like we're almost at the end of our conversation, but one of the other things that I want to talk about are just kind of skills. So, I have two more questions. So, one are kind of what is the most underrated skill that a founder needs to be successful? And then I'll kind of go to the final question that I have after that.
Underrated. Oh, that's a really great one. I mean, I don't know if this is underrated. I feel like there's, like grit or, perseverance are like very, very big ones, but those are not underrated. I think underrated is like handling rejection well, which is a skill that and patience, but rejection, I was really, really bad at rejection. And if we got rejected from an investor, it would take me like a day to recover. I was like, okay, I'll feel better after I go to sleep. After, I just started doing like rejection therapy type of stuff, like going to the store and asking for something that like, it's like, can I have this banana for free? And then they say no, obviously you have to pay for it. Just like that's like a fun, if you look on TikTok, a lot of people, I love it. So I started doing stuff like that where I would get rejected, and that really, really helped. So now it's way more important in founder-led sales, being comfortable with getting rejected. Now it's like I'm struggling with losing potential sales targets to competitors. That's one I'm still struggling with, but yeah, that would really say underrated, or patience, because it's just like in this space, everything takes a really long time. And Kelly told me this, and she said, everything's going to take you like a year to 2 years to get these operators on board. And like, I was like, oh, it'll take a while, but not. Oh yeah, everything takes forever, and I'm the least patient person in the world. So that was really great advice Kelly gave to me a year ago, and she actually said it to me yesterday again, and I was like, yeah, be more patient. So
I mean, that is something that I am actually going to take with me, because I am going to lean into this idea of rejection therapy, because I too am impatient, and I don't necessarily take things personally anymore, but I do feel like, it still stings. And so, I feel like that's a muscle that I can actually take and kind of build into my team overall, because that's something that I think builds resilience as well. And so
for sure.
the last question I have is, because you talked about just so many pivots and so many things that Thunder has been doing. So what are you working on right now that you're proud of, that you think listeners should have on their radar?
Oh my gosh, so much right now that's getting ready to be launched. We have tournaments coming. It's already live in our test B2C app that's available in the App Store and Google Play. But that's going to be rolling out across our network. We also have several new games. With AI, we've just been able to move so much faster. But I think one of the unique things we do as a skill gaming company is like matching users with other real users. And we have so many new operators on board that our player liquidity is really good. The matchmaking times are improving significantly. That's a big challenge and hurdle that comes with doing skill gaming right, in my opinion. We don't use bots, we don't use player farms, and everything is true. One player who wants to be there playing against another player who wants to be there playing. And yeah, I'm very, very proud of what we've built in terms of the infrastructure. But I think the games are just so much fun. So definitely watch our LinkedIn because the demos are on the website. So we'll be dropping like 2 or 3 new games very soon.
Okay, great, great, great. And so I want to thank you so much for joining the Fair Game podcast. One of the things that we try to do, we don't always succeed in every episode, but I think we have time, is that we do a kind of rapid fire kind of question. And so kind of just kind of really, really quick responses just for us to get to know you a little bit better, and kind of a fun way to end the episode. So are you up for a few quick rapid fire questions?
Yes, I'm scared, but I'm up for
it. I mean, so we'll start off easy. Coffee, tea, or something stronger after a long week of founder meetings?
Oh, like a ghost energy drink.
Okay, great. Solitaire, blackjack, or slots? Dealer's choice on the Thunder roster. Which one?
Oh, slots. Skill slots, for sure.
Okay. Biggest myth about crypto that you wish would die tomorrow?
That Bitcoin is a scam, or Bitcoin's going to die. I think Bitcoin is the future of self-sovereign finance, and financial freedom. So that's probably the biggest one.
Okay. And so my last question is, name a woman in gaming that we should all be paying attention to. You talked about Sue, and I think everybody knows Sue, but looking for like an unsung hero, someone that's kind of out there that maybe a lot of people don't know about.
Oh man, so many good ones. You know what? Honestly, I'm gonna say Megan Nation. I think she's just absolutely stellar. And recently, I had lost a very big deal right before a meeting with her in New York, and I was a hot mess. I mean, I really took that one personally. And, she was so kind, so sweet, like helped pump me back up, and was very understanding of me being a little bit late to our meeting. And, and she's just a wealth of knowledge, and kind of always there. And, I don't know, always looking for ways to help me out. And I think she's awesome. And I think she needs more, people need to like give her more snaps. She's great.
Yes. And so I can actually say that I didn't even kind of tee you up for this. Megan Nation is the VP of Professional Services and Sales for Wonder Nation. I absolutely agree. She's on my team. She's amazing. And I appreciate that. I'm not even going to tell her it's on this episode. I'm just going to let her kind of uncover this nugget for herself. So I appreciate you shouting her out, because I absolutely 1,000% agree. And so Desiree, thank you so much for joining today and taking the time to share your journey, your expertise. And it's been a great conversation for me. I think, especially for our kind of audience too, this isn't a topic that we get the chance to talk about that much, because there's just not a lot of people in this field, and you're at the cutting edge of it. So thank you for the advice on rejection therapy. I'm going to take a look at that, and appreciate kind of your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.